Right. So the idea that I want to throw out there, because we're both doing the shift with Ray, is the idea or challenging the idea that money and creativity are enemies in some way, or oil and water, or that they don't mix. Um, yeah. What are your thoughts?
I think what comes into mind is that like it's really similar to working in what would be termed, like spiritual things. So like with yoga teaching, and also I think in general with things that are there to help people. Like so, this comes up with charity as well. Because Ray mentioned this when I had the call with her to see if the shift was right for me. And she was like, there's usually loads of stuff that comes up with people who work in spiritual things and charity work. And I think it's the same in creative, like stuff that's meant to serve other people, wholly. It's like it comes from goodness and it comes from joy as well and connection. So I think we often feel that we don't have a right to earn good money for that because we enjoy it so much. So it doesn't matter. And then other people sometimes put that on us as well. Like that happens in yoga. Like there's a real split in the yoga community of people who think that you shouldn't even charge to do it. And then I think that the reality is that we live in a world where money is the currency. Like money is what we use. It's like if people were gonna put you up as an artist, if people were going to be your patron, like back in the day, and you'd live in their house and you just make art, and they think you were so fun because you lived there and you provided interesting conversation, and they still gave you money though, didn't they? So yeah. But I think it's like a similar thing to that, and like the whole starving artist myth or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, I definitely had this. I have this really specific memory. It's one of the things that I've written about as like a money memory thing, of being 13 and in a theater, and I'm just there specifically out of the absolute sheer love of it. And there's an adult and they're a professional, and I remember them going, "Oh, I'm just not getting paid enough for this," and grumbling and then walking off. And I was like, "Oh my God, I hope I never turn into that kind of a person. And I hope that I always do this for the love." And so I've had all this kind of like shame of like, oh, if I'm asking for money or if I'm doing this for money, then I'm not doing it for the love, that it's one or the other rather than being
But
able to do both. So I think I've really always kind of viewed them as opposing forces, that I guess like love and money, but then not also, because sometimes people express love with money. So it's, I guess I don't see them as opposing, but in relation to my work, it was always like, if I love doing it, of course I won't get paid for it. Of course no one's going to give me any money, because people get paid to do things that they don't want to do.
yeah.
And then another interesting thing that I got challenged on last week when I had a call with Ray was that um, I was like, oh, well, as things get bigger, people sell out or things get less creative, that, like theater has less money and it's more experimental and more exciting to me. And, the topics are often more radical than, say, movies. And I was kind of going like, oh, well, because movies have bigger budgets, so they need to be more conservative because they need to make their money back and blah, 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 blah. And she challenged me and she was like, she doesn't think that it's the money's fault. She's like, I don't think that's the money's fault. I think that's that the people whose hands the money are in.
Mm.
And I was suddenly like, oh my gosh, that makes complete sense. And I've always blamed the money for that rather than the people who are deciding what happens with the money. I kind of gone, money is the problem rather than the type of people that have the money and how they want to spend it, and their beliefs and what they're willing to fund is the problem. And I was suddenly like, oh my God, maybe I need to become a movie producer.
But that's the same as like a whole of society, right? Because many of us will have the belief that money is evil,
Yeah.
because the people who have the money at the moment and have the power because they have the money are like middle-aged white men, and what they're doing with that money is not good. But the only way to change that is by people like us having all the money. like other people with different values and who would spend it in different ways. So I guess it is the same within creative industries as well. It's like, yeah. I was also, oh, just a random thing, there's a play called Love and Money. Do you know that?
Mm.
Yeah, it's by Dennis Kelly, I think. I'll check that out, people. I'll put it in the notes. um, I also was remembering, so every time I've been in a conversation with someone who's, not every time, but often someone who's like a mentor or literally a teacher, I remember so many times being told by a professional in the industry, and this happened in like theatre and yoga, somebody who's meant to be teaching you and supporting you as a new person who wants to come in and that, saying, you don't do this for the money. Don't do this for the money. I've heard it so many times that like, you don't choose to do this work for the money. I was like, we shouldn't be teaching people that.
Mm.
Like, yeah. Yeah.
Can you hear the beeping of the truck?
I can hear
That's
it beeping.
okay. There's a truck outside my window.
How exciting.
Yeah, super exciting. Um, yeah, I think that's just perpetuating the myth of starving artist, or that and the idea that making money has to be a struggle, and that it's not going to be easy, or that it can't be something that you love.
And here's a theory. I always end up with stuff like this. Creativity is a feminine expression of feminine energy. So I'm saying that in terms of like Eastern philosophy. I'm not saying it's just for women to do, but it's an expression of feminine energy in a lot of different philosophies. And a lot of women are creative, and a lot of men who are creative are more in touch with their femininity, right? That just seems to be a thing. I'm not saying everybody, but that's obviously a generalization. So in spreading this myth that there was a starving artist that's romanticized, or people, literally the people in charge saying, yeah, you don't do this for the money, or the people who are like succeeding somehow in this thing saying, you don't do it for the money, well, that's just keeping us, or people with more of the feminine energy, just keeping the feminine energy in its place, which if that energy rose up would completely dismantle and destroy our whole of society's structure. So it's like a self-serving thing. It's like, here you go, you can have this, and it is a profession, and you can get paid, but you're not going to get paid very much, but that's okay, because that's how it is, and we're just going to tell you this how it is, and then you'll tell other people that that's how it is, and then you'll do the thing, but it'll be controlled.
Yeah, and perpetuating the idea that wanting to make money is shameful in some way, or that because it's spiritual or because we love it, that that being interested in money would somehow devalues or like tarnishes what we're offering,
which is just bullshit, actually.
It's rather annoying. But I'm excited because I think being in a program that is specifically talking about like the difficulties that women are faced with trying to make money, and the structures and systems within patriarchy and society at large, is really exciting to try and confront these things and to help us overcome and grow.
Yeah. So, in conclusion, if you're an artist listening to this, creative, or a spiritual person, someone who believes any of those things, get the money.
and find a community that's gonna nurture you into addressing some of these myths and limiting beliefs, because it's not impossible, it's just we haven't seen very many examples of it.
Yes, and you can write back to us and we can talk about it together. That's fine if you want to.
Cool.
And yes, and we shall continue addressing these things and soon bring in lots of money for our art, and then beautiful things will happen.